For this installation, we'll be mounting a madfroggear Lilly pad onto the deck of a touring kayak. We'll be attaching it up there with soft anchor points, which will be mounted onto the existing deck hardware. Once we have that on, we'll be able to mount our Liberator Mini onto the Lilly pad, and we'll use a couple of screws and washers to mount that, and then that will allow us to mount our transducer and our fish finder head onto those. The tools we need for the job will be something to crimp the soft anchor points, a pair of pliers, a Phillips head screwdriver, a saw and some sandpaper to trim off excess parts, and a drill so that we can make it a little easier to work the self-tapping screws. This is a blank surface on the front of our touring kayak where we're going to mount our Lilly pad. We're going to mount it in the center of the deck, about a foot back from the cockpit coaming, so that it's just far enough that we can reach it, but it gets out of the way of our paddle strokes. We're going to attach the straps to each of the four corners and using the clips provided. You may be tempted to use the perimeter deck lines, but don't do this. It's a bad idea. When you tighten up on the perimeter deck lines, you're unable to grab them when you need them in an emergency. You want to leave these lines the way they are. Instead, we're going to attach to the existing hardware on the corners. Since we can't clip directly into the existing hardware, we'll have to add soft anchor points. Just simply slide the cable through the existing hardware so that both ends stick out on the same side. Then you'll take your crimp and thread your crimp onto the cable. Have the cable come from each direction, making a loop. You'll leave just a little bit of the tag end sticking out of the crimp. Take your crimps, crimp it, get a good crimp on it, and then move on to do the other three sides. Now we're going to position our Lilly pad onto the deck. We want it far enough forward that we can still reach it, but that it's far enough back that it won't get in the way. We're going to go ahead and attach the clips closest to the cockpit area, and we'll secure those straps so it holds the board in the position that we want to have it. Now we can move on to the other two straps. We'll go ahead and take these and attach them to the soft anchor points, and then we can tighten down the straps. We want to tighten all of the straps down at this point so that the board is securely tightened to the deck of the boat. Now we can see where we'll be mounting our fish finder head. But what do we do about our transducer? We've got to get the transducer head into the water. That's where our Liberator comes in. Now we're going to use these two screws and washers to mount the Liberator plate to the bottom of our Lilly pad. Now we're going to use these screws in these starter holes. You can see they're a little bit tight, so we're going to take a moment and take our drill and drill out the holes to make it easier to run the screws through. Since we're going to be mounting it on the bottom of the Lilly pad, we'll want to turn it over and then line it up, paying attention to the stop screws to make sure that they're on the outer edge of the Lilly pad. Get it into position, and then we can take our drill and we can drill starter holes in the bottom of the Lilly pad. Now that we have our first starter hole done, we can take our screw and washer and run the screw through the base plate of the Liberator. Once we get the screw through the base plate, we can then attach it to the bottom of our Lilly pad. After we've squared up our plate, then we can drill the hole for the second screw, and we can screw that screw in to firmly secure our Liberator to the bottom of the Lilly pad. Now we're going to return our Lilly pad to the deck of our kayak and secure it in the position that we'll want it to be in when we do the rest of the installation. Now we need to install the transducer deployment arm. We want to open it up and line it up over the hole and bring it in so that it's right up against the side of the boat. We're going to take a screwdriver and we're going to put it through the hole to hold it in place. With it held securely in place, now we can take and mark right behind the stop screw where we'll need to cut it off. Now we're going to take our saw, line it up on the mark, and that's where we're going to cut it off. Now that we've cut it off, we're going to take our sandpaper and soften up the edges a little bit. Now that we've cut the extender, we can go ahead and install it onto the base. We'll use a bolt that's provided, along with a washer and a lock nut. We'll tighten those up using pliers and a Phillips head screwdriver. We want them tight and snug, but still loose enough to move. Now we need to adjust the length of our deployment arm. You can see that it's well below the bottom of the boat, so we'll need to raise it up. First we'll need to remove the nut and bolt, and then we can move it up to a position where the transducer will be right below the bottom of the boat. Then we want to put our washer and our nut back on. Once we tighten this back up, we're going to cheat and we're going to remove the whole unit and use the extender arm as a guide to know where to cut off the excess. Once we've cut this off, we'll sand off the edges. Now we're ready to put our fish finder head on our lily pad. We'll position it and then we'll drill starter holes . And we'll use stainless steel screws to secure it to the top of the lily pad. Now it's time to put our transducer on our transducer arm. To do that, we'll take a bolt, run it through the transducer, and then through the arm. We'll use a lock nut on the back side to secure it. We'll tighten it up, and then we can adjust the angle. I've taken the extra transducer cable and wrapped it around the feet of the lily pad. A couple of bungees around the base, and you have a great place to put your battery pack, right behind the fish finder head. This leaves plenty of room on the other side for your rod holder and your other accessories. And since you're using a lily pad, you can remove your accessories at one time and have a clean deck again in a matter of seconds. Mad Frog Gear, attaching fun to kayaks.